Shiro joined the Azure Sky group on an expedition to the forest to search for the peculiar flower they had discovered. They stumbled upon a meadow filled with fresh blossoms and decided to lie down and enjoy the serene beauty. Shiro felt a pang of regret that Anna wasn't there to see it, knowing how much she loved unique flora. Just as Nesca was about to take a nap, the leader urged everyone to get moving before sunset, suggesting they could rest all they wanted afterward. A week earlier, the group had found a flower called Abzera while searching for relics. This rare plant was a key ingredient for crafting high-level recovery potions, and they had harvested it. However, just a few hours into their journey back, all the flowers wilted. Nesca tried to preserve them with water and magic to maintain a stable temperature, but it was in vain. They couldn't bring the flowers to an alchemist in time, and as the group was about to give up, Lyre remembered Shiro's storage space that could carry items without adding weight and suspend time for the items inside. Lyre trusted Shiro to help them. After securing enough flowers, the group suddenly sensed something approaching. It was a swarm of flies, each with wounds on their backs. Based on Ralph's speculation, the amount of blood lost indicated they had just fought a formidable enemy. Without further hesitation, Lyre ordered Ralph to protect Shiro while Nesca quickly cast a fire spell. The flies found the group and launched a fierce attack. Shiro ran behind Ralph for protection while Nesca and Keela effectively teamed up, noticing the monster's fear of fire. Shiro bravely ran forward, pulling a can of pepper spray from his bag. Ralph advised against using it, explaining that pepper spray wouldn't be effective. However, Shiro had a different plan in mind. He lit a fire in front of the pepper spray and aimed it at the monsters, creating an improvised flamethrower. Ralph was stunned by Shiro's ingenuity and quickly killed a weakened fly with a sword slash, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Even Lyre turned in admiration at Shiro's tactics. With only 6 flies remaining, Shiro was confident they could overcome this challenge. The situation turned perilous when 2 of the largest flies targeted Nesca, making it impossible to use their previous tactics without risking her safety. Shiro dashed to protect her, but as expected, one of the flies slashed at him with its sharp legs. Following Lyre's urgent shout, Shiro sprinted towards the nearest river, the monster still clinging to him, and took a desperate leap. The fly finally let go, but the river was deep, and Shiro couldn't swim. He began to sink, his hand the only thing visible above the water. Lyre yelled desperately, vowing to search for Shiro along the riverbank, unaware if Shiro could hear him. Eventually, Shiro awoke, coughing up water and feeling disoriented. In front of him stood a peculiar girl, looking annoyed with a curious stare. Shiro realized she was a fairy, a sight he had never encountered before. As she revealed herself to be a fairy, Shiro immediately became alert. It was his first time seeing a fairy. The tiny, annoyed fairy seemed embarrassed by his gaze. She questioned why Shiro had fallen into the water and realized she had saved him from becoming fish food. Confused, Shiro recounted the entire incident to the fairy. After listening, she couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of Shiro's predicament. When Shiro mentioned he was from Nino Rich, a human town, the fairy expressed her desire to accompany him. Curious, Shiro asked why she wanted to accompany him. The fairy shyly revealed that she had a close friend in Nino Rich. She described her friend as a bit shorter and more energetic than Shiro, always cheerful, with sky-blue eyes and bright hair. She then asked if Shiro knew this person. Shiro scratched his head, puzzled. He pointed out that without a name, it would be difficult to identify anyone, as many people could fit that description. Unfortunately, she didn't know the name either, only referring to him as the human, since he was the only human she had ever met. She speculated that he might be an adventurer or a hunter since they had met in the forest while hunting monsters. Finding their forest encounter quite romantic, Shiro asked if they were lovers. Embarrassed, she quickly clarified that they were just friends, or maybe something more, but insisted that fairies and humans couldn't fall in love. Shiro guessed they must be best friends and asked if she knew the forest well. Proudly, she confirmed she was raised in the Jig Forest. Shiro decided to take her to Nino Rich on the condition that she guide him through the northern forest. After a moment of surprise, she agreed, promising to protect him until they reached their destination. To demonstrate her skills, she performed a wind slice, effortlessly cutting down several large trees with a single swift motion that was too quick to see. Shiro turned pale, but she shyly admitted she wasn't very good at controlling her power. However, she assured him that as long as she was strong, everything would be fine. As she shooed away a swarm of flies from the area, Shiro noticed an enemy that had injured the monster flies. The enemy was none other than Patty, who introduced herself as Patty Fulu. She declared herself the leader of their journey. Shiro playfully suggested calling her boss instead. Patty happily accepted, and Shiro enthusiastically shouted, "Yes, boss," which made Patty blush. Jokingly, Shiro added that he could even act like those who flatter their lady boss. Seeing Patty's annoyance, Shiro playfully suggested he act like a gang leader, but he also enjoyed her company. So, he proposed they play as a king and his servant. They spent the evening laughing and playing around, and before they knew it, night had fallen. Sitting by the fire, Shiro shared stories about his friends with Patty. She asked if he truly wanted to return to them, and Shiro confirmed he did, as his teammates were likely searching for him. Patty resolved to help Shiro find his friends, pushing aside her obvious concerns to consider their boss-employee dynamic. Patty then asked if Shiro was hungry and casually opened her personal storage space, ready to share a meal. As Patty chewed on an apple and rummaged through her storage, she noticed Shiro's surprised expression. She assumed he had never seen such a storage space before, explaining that fairies like her often had such abilities. Finally, Patty pulled out a flask and handed it to Shiro, saying it would warm him up. Shiro eagerly took a sip, delighted by the taste. Patty, seeing his enjoyment, tasked him with finishing the drink before bed, promising to keep watch for the night. The flask contained a sweet liquor that left Shiro feeling a bit tipsy. He thanked the fairy and quickly fell asleep. The next morning, at dawn, Patty perched on Shiro's head, guiding him towards the northern forest. She chatted endlessly about the various species of fairies, including shepherd fairies, demon fairies, and a powerful elf fairy in a nearby village. Shiro, exhausted and gasping for air, asked his boss, Patty, if they could take a break. Patty, slightly annoyed by Shiro's weakness, reluctantly agreed to let him rest while she continued talking. She lectured about the peculiar baboona flower beside them, explaining how it was often mistaken for another species. Shiro sighed, mentally summarizing Patty's endless stories. Apparently, long before Patty was born, there was once a kingdom called Jig in this area. Now, it had fallen and turned into the Jigaina forest. Curious, Shiro asked Patty if the kingdom existed during the era of ancient magic. She admitted she didn't know, as it was before her time. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed nearby. Realizing they were human, Patty ordered Shiro to hide immediately. They both concealed themselves in the bushes. The footsteps grew louder until 4 figures appeared, frantically searching for Shiro. Among them was Lyre, who was crying and calling out Shiro's name, hoping he hadn't fallen off a waterfall and died. Nesca stood beside him, hitting him with a stone and scolding him for bringing bad luck. Unfazed, Lyre looked up, tears streaming down his face, and asked if Shiro was still alive. Nesca smiled, patting Lyre's head reassuringly, while Keela bounced around in search of Shiro, confident he was still alive. Meanwhile, Shiro, hiding nearby, felt the urge to rush out and call to them. He glanced at the fairy beside him, wondering what to do next. Shiro disagreed with Patty's decision, chastising him for making noise. Smiling at Patty, he reassured her that the people approaching were his close friends and teammates. He then signaled his location and dashed towards the group. The team rejoiced upon finding Shiro, but Keela was nowhere to be seen. She had been snatched by a giant bird. In the excitement of seeing Shiro, Keela thrashed and kicked until the bird released her, causing her to fall. Shiro managed to catch her just in time. The cat-like girl lay on top of him, crying with relief, having feared she had lost him. After calming her down, they both stood up, and the three others rushed over. Liar began by apologizing, lamenting their failure to protect Shiro from the monster. Nesca thanked Shiro for saving her and vowed to repay the favor. Shiro, feeling overwhelmed by their attention, assured them that he was safe and happy to be reunited with his team. The trials of the past no longer mattered. Shiro wondered aloud if they truly saw him as part of the team with all their formalities. They all shouted in unison that it wasn't the case. Shiro then revealed it was a miracle he survived, thanks to someone else. He pointed towards his savior, who was hiding behind a tree, a tiny figure named Petty, floating in the air. The group's faces turned skeptical and cautious. Nesca mentioned that seeing a fairy was extremely rare, often dismissed as mere imagination. She added that fairies were never supposed to be seen by ordinary people. Shiro turned to ask Petty about this. Petty admitted that even after leaving her village, she was still bound by certain rules, and quickly hid behind Shiro's head. Hearing about the group called the Blessed Fairies, Petty angrily questioned why fairies would bless humans. Shiro laughed, saying he wasn't sure, but maybe in some other place, fairies did things like that. Listening to their conversation, the group explained that the term Blessed Fairies referred to legendary fairies who made honey wine. Shiro immediately remembered the sweet, delicious drink Petty had given him. Upon hearing this, Nesca, shocked, grabbed Petty's shirt to confirm the story. Not only Nesca, but everyone was shocked to learn that Shiro had tasted fairy honey wine. Liar exclaimed that the wine was so valuable that a small glass could buy a castle, and the last recorded sale was over 200 years ago. Shiro was terrified, while Petty casually mentioned she gave him the wine because he was her subordinate. As the group grew more curious about this boss-subordinate relationship, Shiro had to explain the whole story. Knowing the fairy's name now, everyone warmly welcomed her. Liar, with a friendly expression, thanked Petty for saving Shiro and offered their help if she ever needed it. Suddenly, Shiro remembered something and mentioned Liar's offer, stating that Petty was looking for a friend. They could use this opportunity to repay her. Liar asked who they were searching for, and Shiro described the person with blue eyes and hair, possibly a hunter or an astronaut. This confused everyone, but Shiro assured them that they would eventually find this person. Now, with everyone reunited, they felt more confident about their mission. They began their journey back to Nino. After a long day of traveling together, they neared their destination. Petty spotted the city from a distance and eagerly pointed it out to Shiro, calling it a human village. Nesca corrected her, explaining that it was a city and how places are categorized based on their size. Petty, fascinated, perched on Shiro's head, urging him to move faster. The group laughed heartily, joking about the challenges of being her subordinate. As they entered the city, Shiro noticed a figure waiting in the distance. It was Anna, with a worried expression, anxiously awaiting his return. Overwhelmed with relief upon seeing him, she ran and hugged him, tears streaming down her face. Stella, Anna's mother, appeared shortly after, explaining that Anna couldn't sleep the previous night, worrying about him facing dangers on the road. Together, they all headed home, clearly exhausted from lack of rest. Anna, looking tired, fell asleep on her mother's shoulder as they walked. Shiro asked Stella if she was all right. Though Stella was breathing heavily, she insisted on carrying her daughter, believing she could manage a bit longer. Shiro understood and reminded her to let him know if it became too much. Usually, Anna was very considerate, but she must have been exhausted. Otherwise, she wouldn't have let her mother, who had just recovered from an illness, carry her. After seeing them home, Shiro returned to his place. Entering his house, Petty excitedly flew around, admiring its size. Shiro asked how fairies lived, and Petty explained they built homes high in the trees, safe from monsters. She playfully nudged his shoulder, reminding him of their mission. Shiro assured her they would find her friend in the city, planning to start their search the next day. Remembering the honey wine, Shiro asked if it was really hard to make. Petty thought it was easy, only requiring honey, but getting the honey was the hardest part. She told him about being stung by a swarm of bees just to get a little. Shiro rummaged through his bag and handed a jar to Petty, asking if it was enough. At first, Petty didn't understand what he was doing. Then, realizing what he had given her, she gasped, staring at the jar of honey with wide eyes. Shiro explained that it was 100% pure honey from a farm. Skeptical, Petty tasted it with her finger, and a moment later, her face lit up with delight. She exclaimed that with this ingredient, she could make the best wine. Shiro was pleased to hear this but was too tired to stay awake. He collapsed onto the sofa, falling into a dreamless sleep, drooling alongside the fairy. The next morning, even the loudest bird chirping couldn't wake Shiro. When he finally opened his eyes, he was greeted by Anna's face. Confused, he wondered why she was there since his shop was still closed. Anna explained that her mother sent her with lunch and noticed the tiny fairy on his head. Her eyes sparkled as she gently lifted the fairy. Shiro introduced Petty and explained that Anna worked at his shop. After lunch, the three of them went out to the balcony for some fresh air. Seizing the moment, Petty asked Anna if she knew a boy with blue eyes and hair. Anna's cluelessness made Petty's face fall in disappointment. Shiro comforted her, saying it was impossible for Anna to know everyone in the city. Besides, they could ask around the small town soon enough. With their bags packed, the three set off to find the boy, with Anna helping. But first, they needed to figure out how to hide Petty. Anna had prepared a small backpack, and their search began in earnest. Shiro asked everyone he met about Petty's friend, from street vendors to doctors, astronauts, and even a kebab shop owner. But no one knew the mysterious boy. They even asked Ed, the local government office manager, a parrot, and a thief, totaling 27 people, but still found no clues. Anna suggested that the boy might not live in Nino, but Petty insisted her friend was on his way there. The only clue they had was Petty's necklace, which Shiro had photographed earlier. While the three of them sat under a tree to rest, Karen appeared out of nowhere, out of breath. Her first concern was whether Shiro was hurt. After hearing he had ventured into the forest with the Azure Sky group and knowing he was uninjured, she playfully patted Shiro's head, making him blush in embarrassment. Shiro showed Karen a photo of the necklace. She pondered it, feeling she had seen it before but couldn't recall where. Promising to inform them if she remembered, Karen rushed off to urgent business with her group. Shiro's curiosity piqued at Karen's grim expression as she mentioned the Azure Sky group's failure to fully protect his friend, causing danger. Shiro tried to stop her, but it was too late. Karen had already disappeared down the street. He hoped the others would be safe from any fallout. Anna then suggested they stay with Petty for the night. Shiro asked Petty's opinion, and although she was initially reluctant, she agreed to the sincere invitation. After a day of fruitless searching, they all parted ways. Anna, with Petty discreetly tucked into her backpack, went home to find her mother. She excitedly hinted at a secret to show her, and her mother, Stella, agreed with surprise and excitement. Stella was initially startled but soon delighted to see the miniature person, Petty, commenting on how Anna and her mother's eyes were identical. Adjusting quickly to the idea of hosting a fairy, Stella brought tea and snacks for their esteemed guest. Petty was delighted by the softness of the bed, feeling its comfort for the first time. As they sat and chatted, Stella asked about the boy Petty was searching for, and Anna showed interest too. After some reflection, Petty began to share her story. She recounted the first time she left her village and encountered humans. She remembered how the boy's childish antics had made her laugh. Initially, she had observed him from above, finding amusement in his struggles and tears. But as his desperation grew, her heart softened, and she decided to intervene. When the boy saw her magic, he stood frozen, staring in awe. He asked if she was a fairy, marking the beginning of their unique acquaintance. Petty helped the boy face a rabbit, and to his amazement, efficiently cooked and eagerly devoured the meat, exclaiming repeatedly how incredible it tasted. At first, Petty thought there was something strange about the boy's palate, but she soon realized the truth. The boy was starving and hadn't eaten a proper meal in over 10 days. His gratitude towards Petty was evident after he was full, and he curiously asked for her name. She playfully responded that she would tell him once he became a skilled hunter. Over time, the clumsy boy evolved into a competent hunter, expertly using his bow and arrow to hunt larger and swifter prey. When he approached her again at dusk to ask her name, Petty hesitated once more. Petty's mind blurred with memories of past rejections. She avoided the boy's question, promising to reveal her name next time. The boy, understanding her hesitation, didn't insist, though it saddened him. That final meeting left both feeling lonely in their own ways, yet comforted by each other's company. Drawn together by their mutual solitude, Petty vowed that when they met again, she wouldn't just reveal her name but also learn his. As Petty finished her story, she laughed self-consciously and apologized to Stella and Anna, thinking her tale was dull. Suddenly, she felt a drop on her head, startling her. She thought the roof was leaking, but when she looked up, she saw Anna with tears streaming down her face, deeply moved by the story. Anna expressed her belief that Petty and her friend were destined to reunite, a sentiment that touched Petty profoundly. Meanwhile, in a different scene, Shiro, after spending over 2 hours bathing and enjoying the comforts of the modern world back in Nino, noticed Liero waving at him with a swollen face. Surprised, Shiro asked about it, and Liero managed a weak smile, explaining that it was the result of the mayor's scolding over his decision to bring Shiro into the forest. The mayor's disapproval was evident. Suddenly, Liero swung his arm without holding back and landed a punch on his own face, almost shocking Shiro. Liero then invited Shiro for a beer at the community bar where the community leader and others would be. Shiro quickly changed clothes and joined them at the bar. Everyone raised their glasses in celebration, happily sipping their beers. Shiro took a big gulp but didn't seem to enjoy it much. Eni guessed that Shiro didn't find the beer to his taste. Shiro awkwardly scratched his head, surprised when Eni laughed, admitting that he didn't think it was great either. Eni explained that the variety of drinks available in the frontier region was limited, and while some travelers had requested better options, the costs were high. The significant obstacle was Emile, who was a bit tipsy, wishing they had wine or cider instead of the current drink. Despite its sour taste and less appealing aroma, at least those drinks had a pleasant smell. Misunderstanding this thought, Shiro joked about sourness, equating it with Liero's playful jab, saying that a successful businessman like him would only drink noble wine. Shiro retorted that back home, there were many affordable yet delicious wines, categorized into 3 types: red, white, and rose. Recently, orange wine had also become popular. Each type came in various varieties, ranging from sweet to bitter, with some being light and easy to drink, while others were stronger with complex flavors. Prices varied widely, from cheap and accessible to as expensive as a house. Some people were so enthusiastic about wine that they paired different types with each meal. However, Shiro personally preferred sake, which also came in 3 main types: Junake, pure rice wine, non-alcoholic rice wine, and heinous, sweet sake without sugar. As he mentioned this, Shiro suddenly paused. Everyone's eyes were on him, eagerly waiting for him to continue. Even those who had been involved in noisy brawls earlier stopped and turned their attention to him. With some encouragement to continue, Shiro nervously swallowed and declared that there were many varieties from his homeland, suitable for any alcohol enthusiast. His eyes sparkled with anticipation. Despite the suddenness, Shiro sensed a golden business opportunity. If this venture succeeded, it could hit 3 birds with 1 stone. He loudly drew everyone's attention and announced a significant decision. In 3 days, Shiro would host a wine-tasting event featuring selections from his homeland. Today, Anna swapped her usual clothes for a server's outfit, which even earned her a compliment from Liero. They were helping out at the community bar, and despite initial objections due to Anna's age, her persistence paid off, and Stella agreed to accompany her. Nesca and Keela also donned their uniforms. Nesca's ice magic proved useful for chilling drinks. The bar manager expressed his gratitude for their help by offering each of them a bottle of their choice as a reward. Keela chose a fruit wine, while Nesca opted for a cola-flavored liquor. When Anna was asked, she innocently requested grape juice. Outside, the community was buzzing with excitement, eager to get in. Handsome Shiro stepped out to calm the crowd, expressing his gratitude for their relentless efforts in the daily forest search. As a token of appreciation, he announced that he would be opening a wine selection stall at his shop. The announcement was met with joyful cheers, as some in the crowd could hardly wait to taste the delightful offerings. Without further ado, Shiro declared that the drinks were on the house for the day, sparking a lively uproar in the hall. Momentarily worried about the 3 million yen he had spent, he reassured himself it was a worthy investment. He then introduced Ani, who wanted to say a few words to the crowd. Ani encouraged everyone to enjoy Shiro's fine wine, but reminded them to work hard the next day. As everyone eagerly prepared to enjoy their drinks, the event quickly turned chaotic even before Shiro could pour the first glass. People pushed and shoved, but Ani swiftly stepped in to manage the situation. Her usually cheerful demeanor turned stern, scaring everyone into orderly lines. Liero stood beside her, picking out a bottle of Sapari beer. Anna suggested adding a slice of lemon to enhance its flavor. Liero took a sip and, after a long gulp, his eyes sparkled and his face flushed. The beer's light fizz and fruity touch elevated its taste. He downed the rest of his glass in one go, placing it down with a satisfying clink, looking thoroughly pleased. Seeing his reaction, those behind him eagerly requested the same beer, praising its delightful flavor. On the other side, Stella and Anna tirelessly served an endless stream of drink orders while Shiro dealt with a customer who requested the strongest liquor available. People started whispering, recognizing the man as Erdos, one of the 16 heroes, known as the undefeated elf. Shiro handed him a bottle of Spirus, a potent liquor with a 96% alcohol content, notorious for its intense strength. Pouring a small glass, Shiro presented it to Erdos. The elf, holding the tiny glass, sneered and cynically commented about being treated like a child despite being 200 years old. Shiro, nearly panicking, quickly explained that he meant no offense and that the Spirus was guaranteed to get anyone dizzy. However, Erdos remained unimpressed, his face reddening with anger as he accused Shiro of trying to humiliate him. He boasted that he had never been drunk in his entire life, causing the entire hall to fall silent, listening intently to their exchange. Shiro continued to coax Erdos to drink, responsibly warning that excessive drinking could be life-threatening. Finally, Erdos accepted the message, deciding not to argue further. Instead, he dramatically ripped off his shirt and challenged Shiro to a fight outside to settle the matter. Everyone, including Shiro, was shocked at the prospect of a brawl with Erdos. Just as uncertainty loomed on how to handle the situation, Ralph intervened. Introducing himself as Ralph, a priest serving the Sky Lord Florine, he aimed to defuse the tension. Erdos, still furious, accused Ralph of provoking him, arguing that Shiro had insulted him first, challenging the pride of an elf. But Erdos firmly declared that alcohol flowed in their elvish blood by the barrel, not just a mere glass. Ralph remained calm and offered a proposition. As a priest, not only could he heal poisons, but he also had a spell to cure drunkenness. So, if Erdos happened to get drunk, Ralph would be able to cure him immediately. Erdos then added a bold wager. If he didn't get drunk, he would earn the right to drink for free at the bar for life. With this, he ordered Shiro to fill his glass. Shiro complied, emptying the entire bottle of Spirus into the glass. Erdos lifted the glass with its 96% alcohol content, sniffed it, and commented on its incredibly strong aroma, more intense than any alcohol he had ever encountered. Without further delay, he downed the entire glass in one go. The crowd watched eagerly, waiting to see the result of this bold bet. After a loud belch, Erdos slammed the glass down and stared straight at Shiro, asking if he looked drunk. Shiro scratched his head, observing that Erdos indeed seemed completely sober. Acknowledging defeat, Shiro watched as Erdos laughed triumphantly, looking forward to a lifetime of free drinks. But then, suddenly, Erdos felt a wave of dizziness and a sharp pain in his stomach. Within seconds, his towering figure collapsed to the ground, unconscious. The crowd was left in shock, unable to comprehend what had just happened. When Erdos woke up, his head was still pounding, and he couldn't comprehend what had happened. Shiro stood beside him, delivering a moral lesson to help him understand. Erdos would have been out cold if not for Ralph's timely intervention with his healing magic. Despite being a great hero, Erdos couldn't withstand the power of the alcohol. Erdos' subordinates, who stood nearby, were utterly shocked. It was the first time someone had dared to criticize him, and astonishingly, his first defeat came at the hands of alcohol. Everyone present was curious about this potent wine. Due to its powerful effect, they unanimously decided to name it Hero Slayer. It didn't take long for the wine to become famous throughout the land. By the end of that day, everyone was extremely drunk, sprawled out on the floor. Nesca and Keela were thrilled with the wines they had chosen. As the evening went on, Lyre, now quite drunk, felt a bit embarrassed enjoying the free drinks. Shiro pondered the low price they had paid for such an addictive experience for travelers. Lyre chuckled, commenting that this was typical of an experienced merchant. A few patrons even got into scuffles, but nothing too serious, as no one intervened, believing it was just a way to relieve stress. Keela, overhearing the conversation between Shiro and Lyre, jumped in and patted Lyre on the back, praising him as a good person. Despite the compliment, Lyre knew Shiro had a hidden agenda. He had noticed a suspicious fairy hiding inside a wooden barrel. Realizing he could no longer keep it a secret, Shiro took the barrel and called out to his boss, asking if they had seen the person he was looking for. The small figure inside responded sadly, saying they hadn't and feeling guilty for troubling Shiro with such a task. Shiro wanted to comfort Petty but struggled to find the right words. The day ended without any success in locating Petty's friend, despite numerous inquiries about the necklace and posting pictures and descriptions for travelers. There were moments when Petty thought her friend might have already left Nino Rich, but Shiro and Anna assured her that many people still lived beyond the town. Maybe 10, 20, or even 30. Petty grew increasingly desperate, realizing how difficult it was to find one person in such a vast crowd. Just then, a voice called out from outside. Karen walked in, holding a strange box. As she entered, everyone, especially Petty, felt a surge of hope. Karen had searched her house after seeing the photo of the necklace that Shiro had shown her. She revealed that the necklace belonged to her great-grandfather, the first mayor of Nino Rich. Anna, shocked, asked Shiro about his great-grandfather. Shiro explained that it was his grandfather's grandfather. Karen, puzzled, asked why he was looking for her ancestor. Petty admitted that she was the one who asked Shiro to search. Shiro was surprised to see the fairy. Karen turned to Shiro, confused about the situation. After grasping the full story, she found it hard to believe that her great-grandfather had known a fairy. Without further ado, Petty anxiously asked about his current whereabouts. When Karen didn't respond, Petty pressed harder, bewildered by how she didn't know the location of her own ancestor. She argued that being family meant you should know where your relatives are. Karen paused, lost in thought, and then asked Petty about the lifespan of fairies. Without hesitation, Petty revealed that fairies live around 3,000 years, and she was only 300 years old. Shiro's expression darkened as he grasped the situation. Karen continued, explaining that humans can't even live for 100 years, meaning the person Petty was searching for had long since passed away. Hearing this, Petty fainted, her eyes wide with disbelief. She remembered enduring taunts and scorn, with no one wanting her around. No one cared for her, not even her parents. No one would have cared if she died. That's why, on a starless, moonless night, Petty broke the rules and left the village. But then she met him. It was the first time someone looked at her with such kindness. He thanked her for her help. It was the first time someone smiled at her and played with her. He showed Petty what happiness looked like, and for the first time, she realized there were people in the world who loved her. She wasn't a worthless fallen star. She understood that no matter how dangerous it was out there, as long as she had breath left, she would face any danger to save her friend. Despite lying injured on the ground, unable to stand, he joyfully told her he had made a necklace that could be paired with a beautiful gemstone, symbolizing their friendship. It was a reminder for both of them to think of each other, even when apart. From that moment, they became best friends. He gently explained to her the significance and importance of having a best friend. Petty was so moved that she cried tears of happiness. She had thought about revealing her name to the boy, but fear overwhelmed her. She feared that if she revealed her name, they would never have the chance to meet again. She vaguely realized their happy days would soon end, and they promised each other that next time they would reveal their names. But there never was a next time. The person she wanted to meet was now forever out of reach.